Are you ready to have your heart pounded, your spine tingled, and your blood run cold? Then buckle up, because we're taking a terrifying trip through the 15 most horrifying places on Earth. Welcome to Beyond the Senses. Number 15. The Mariana Trench is a deep, deep part of the ocean. It's really cool with clear water, and you can find it in oceans all over the world. People love living near the beach, but some are scared because of the scary things in the trench. The trench is in the North Pacific Ocean, and is the deepest one we know about. We only started exploring it in 1960, using special vehicles that can handle the pressure way down, over 35,000 feet under the sea. In the trench, there are creatures that look like real-life monsters. There are dragonfish, goblin sharks, sea devils, anglerfish, frilled sharks, and zombie worms. They live in the coldest and darkest parts of the trench and eat anything they can catch, sometimes swallowing their prey whole. Some creatures down there are really huge because of something called deep-sea gigantism. The trench has lower temperatures, so the animals grow bigger and live longer. The Mariana Trench is like a scary place where nightmares come true. What's even scarier is that there are probably many more creatures down there that we don't know about yet. Number 14. If you really don't like snakes, don't go to Snake Island in Brazil. It's also called Ilhas d'Aqua Mata Grande. It's about 90 miles away from Sao Paulo. When you go there, you might see beautiful tropical plants, but look closely and you'll see lots of snakes. Around 4,000 of them are golden lance-head vipers, which are very dangerous. Their venom can kill a person in an hour. Snakes have been on this island for a very long time, about 11,000 years. The island used to be connected to mainland Brazil, but as sea levels rose, it got cut off. Snakes don't have natural enemies on the island, so their population grew a lot. But that also meant less food for them, so they started eating birds in the trees. Most snakes wait for their prey to die, but these vipers have venom that can kill a bird, and even make its flesh melt right away. The Brazilian government is strict about who can visit Snake Island, and there must be a doctor on government-approved visits. Number 13. In Japan, there is a village called Nagoro, with more dolls than people. Even though Japan has a lot of people, its population is decreasing because not many babies are being born. Nagoro is a small village where an artist named Tsukimi Ayano made life-size dolls of her neighbors who either died or moved away. Now there were more dolls than real people in the village. The dolls are everywhere, doing things like fishing or sitting on benches. It's a bit creepy, especially at night when you can't tell if someone is real or a doll. In 2020, there were only 37 real people in Nagoro, and the youngest person was 50 years old. So about 350 dolls are living with them. People call Nagoro the Scarecrow Village. The big question is, what will happen to the village when Tsukimi Ayano and the real people pass away? Number 12. Jezeret Al Hamra in the United Arab Emirates is a very fancy place. It shows off human cleverness and building skills. Also, there's a lot of money there. Even though many parts of the UAE are quite new, there are still old structures in Jezeret Al Hamra. It's about 14 miles away from a big city and is between a shopping mall and a water park. But it's like a ghost town now. Jezeret Al Hamra started in the 14th century and was a busy village for pearl fishing in the 1800s. Suddenly, in 1968, everyone left, but the buildings are still there, trying to stay standing. The first roads, mosques, and houses are still around. Some people say it's haunted because even though no one lives there, there are weird sounds and ghostly things happening. Locals also say there might be jinn, which are like pre-Islamic genies, living there. They say the jinn can look like animals, so if you see any four-legged creatures in the area, it's better to stay away from them. Number 11. The Good Hope Castle is a big building near the pretty shores of Table Bay in South Africa. It was built in 1666 by the Dutch East India Company as a place to restock supplies for ships. But it also worked as a fort and a prison during a war in the early 1900s. It's the oldest colonial building in South Africa. You can take a tour to see everything inside, including a torture chamber. People were not only tortured there, but some were also sentenced to death by hanging in the 1700s. There are stories about ghosts haunting the castle. One ghost in particular is said to have cursed the governor just before being hanged. The governor then had a heart attack and died on the same day. Now it's believed that the governor's ghost haunts the castle, condemned by those he sentenced to death. Number 10. The Hofty House is a very famous home in Reykjavik, overlooking the waterfront. Many important people like Ronald Reagan and Mikhail Gorbachev met there, In 1986, Queen Elizabeth, Marlene Dietrich, and Winston Churchill also stayed there. It has a rich history, but some people say it's haunted. The most famous ghost is the White Lady, who some think died by her own hand. She appears at night and scared an ambassador so much that they convinced the British Foreign Office to sell the house. It was then sold back to the Icelandic government. Locals say the house might be on a Viking burial site, and sometimes the spirits of dead warriors are said to raid the liquor cabinet. Number 9. Ramree Island may seem like a nice place for a vacation, but there's a dark story about it. During World War II, there was a big fight called the Battle of Ramree Island. British soldiers fought against the Japanese army, and as the British realized they were losing, the Japanese soldiers went into the marshes. Here's where it gets scary. Many stories say the soldiers were eaten by saltwater crocodiles. Some say 980 men died, others say 10, and some say 400. The Guinness World Records calls it the worst disaster caused by animals. We may never know the exact number, but it's a chilling story about what happened on Ramree Island. Number 8. People on North Sentinel Island really want to be left alone. They live in a place called the Bay of Bengal and the Indian Ocean. They are a group of native people, and they've made it clear that they don't want visitors. If someone tries to approach them, they get angry and might even hurt or kill that person. In 1956, the government of India said that North Sentinel Island is a special place for these people, and nobody should come close. This is supposed to protect everyone. However, in 2006, some fishermen went too close, and the native people killed them. They put the bodies on display to warn others. Later, when helicopters came to get the bodies, the native people attacked them too. In 2018, a man named John Chow went to the island secretly. He wanted to tell the native people about his religion, but they ended up killing him. It's sad, but the truth is that when we go to their land, we have to follow their rules, even if we don't agree with them. Number 7. In the 1980s, the Fairmont Banff Springs Hotel in Canada became famous for its scary reputation, thanks to a movie called The Shining. The hotel was built in 1888 to boost tourism and help the local economy. It's a grand chateau-style building located near the beautiful Rocky Mountains. Inside the hotel, the atmosphere is a bit eerie, with a Gothic style. People have reported seeing ghosts over the years, including a bride who supposedly fell down the stairs during her wedding and now haunts the halls in her gown. If that's too spooky for you, there's also a ghost named Sam the Bellman. He used to work at the hotel until 1975 and promised to haunt the place after he quit. Legend has it that Sam now moves guests' luggage around when they're not looking, but unlike other bellmen, he doesn't expect a tip. Number 6. A long time ago, in Ireland, there was a castle called Leap Castle. It was built between the 13th and late 15th centuries. The castle has a dark history that is similar to the stories in Game of Thrones, but it's real. Local legends say that a member of the ruling O'Carroll clan killed his own brother, who was a priest, during a mass in the castle's chapel. Now, that room is known as the Bloody Chapel. People say the ghost of the priest haunts the church at night. In the early 1900s, the castle underwent renovations. Construction workers found a secret underground dungeon in the Bloody Chapel. It still had skeletons of its victims. There were so many skeletons that it took 3 cartloads to remove them. Upon further investigation, they discovered that the dungeon was designed with a trapdoor. People would fall through it onto spikes, causing a slow and painful death. The dungeon was purposely built close to the main hall, so that the clan members could hear the screams of the victims. Number 5. St. Augustine Lighthouse is a lonely place, even though it's now automated. Keepers used to stay there alone for weeks or months, which could make them feel crazy. In Florida, this lighthouse has a history that attracts many visitors. Some sad events happened there, creating stories of ghosts and strange things. One story is about a keeper who fell and died while painting the tower. People say they can see his ghost watching over the grounds. Another spooky thing is the sounds of children playing in the lighthouse, even when there are no kids around. Many years ago, 3 girls were playing in a cart that fell into the ocean, and all of them drowned. People think their game never ended, so they're still playing even now. Number 4. Giolla Island is a small island near Naples. It has 2 parts connected by a small stone bridge. The island is surrounded by rocky shores and clear water, revealing ancient ruins under the sea. There's a private villa on the island with a 360-degree view, but locals are scared to go there. The island has been around since Roman times, but in the 1800s, people believe a curse started. The first owner, Ilmago the Wizard, disappeared without a trace. Later owners faced financial ruin, a shipwreck, and a murder. No one who lived there had a good fate. Now, Gaiola Island is part of an underwater park, protected by the Campana region. If you don't believe in curses, you can swim over and explore the abandoned villa. Have a good trip. Number 3. War is a really bad thing, no matter when, where, or why it happens. Even when people fight for freedom, bad things happen to everyone involved. In 1948, during the Cold War between the Soviet Union and the United States, the Soviets had a secret lab on Vortinia Island. They were trying to make really dangerous diseases into weapons. They tested diseases like smallpox, anthrax, and the bubonic plague in the open air. They thought the island's isolation would keep the effects from spreading. After 40 years, the Soviet Union ended, and the lab was abandoned. The island became part of the mainland, and the area dried up into a desert. The Russian government sent teams to clean up the old lab, and in 2001, they said it was safe. But in 2005, another report said some experiments, like using anthrax on animals, were still there. Now, the island is like a ghost town, and we hope it stays that way. If the horrors from the lab ever get out, it would be really bad. Number 2. Poveglia, a small island in Italy, was built in the late 1700s by the Venetian government to keep people with a dangerous illness, called the plague, away from others. At one point, over 160,000 sick people lived there, and many of them never left. Some stories say that about half of the island's ground is made up of the remains of these people. In more recent times, several mass graves filled with plague victims have been found on nearby islands. This idea of islands being used as graves is quite scary. Napoleon later took control of Poveglia and used it to store weapons for his army. When the location was discovered, it became a place of battles, adding to the sad history of the island. In 1922, a mental hospital was opened on Poveglia, adding more horror to its history. Local legends tell of a doctor who tortured and killed patients through experiments. This doctor supposedly fell or was thrown from a bell tower and died. The hospital closed in 1968, but the ruins still stand as nature takes over. Knowing all this, it's not surprising that Poveglia is considered very haunted. People interested in dark history and ghost hunting visit the island. The Italian government even tried to sell the area, but because of its troubled past, Poveglia's fate is uncertain. Number 1. Once upon a time, there was a place called the Island of the Dolls. It's a strange place where dolls became scary. Some people got scared by toys in a movie called Toy Story or a creepy show called Child's Play. Older folks might have been spooked by an episode of The Twilight Zone. In Mexico City, there lived a man named Don Julian Santana Barrera. He made the Island of the Dolls his home. But these weren't normal dolls like Barbie. Barrera was a religious person. Whenever he found a doll floating down the canal, he'd take it and hang it on a tree. He believed this honored a young girl who had supposedly drowned nearby. For 50 years, until Barrera passed away in 2001, he kept adding more dolls to the trees. He thought they were possessed by the spirit of the girl. Some people wonder if Barrera had mental health issues, but that's still debated. Now, the Island of the Dolls is a creepy tourist spot in Mexico. People come from all over to hang dolls from the trees and pay respect to Barrera. It's become a spooky legend. If you're interested in more interesting stuff like this, check out on Square4N. Sit back, relax, and enjoy watching all our best videos. See you next time.